Tonight, you're about to discover one of the most consoling mysteries that the Church has ever received through divine revelation. Through the mystical visions of Saint Faustina Kowalska, the Secretary of Divine Mercy, you will learn that death is not a wall, but a door, and love is not buried with the body, but transformed into something even more beautiful and eternal. The souls of your departed loved ones haven't vanished into nothingness, they haven't forgotten you. In fact, through Saint Faustina's extraordinary encounters with souls from purgatory, and even glorified spirits, we discover that they see you, they know your struggles, they feel your love, and they intercede for you in ways more powerful than when they walked beside you on earth. Are you ready to glimpse behind the veil of eternity and understand how the communion of saints truly works? If you love deep spiritual content that will transform your understanding of life, death, and eternal love, subscribe to this channel now. Activate the notification bell so you won't miss the profound teachings that will strengthen your faith journey. Your soul is about to be touched by revelations that could change how you think about your departed loved ones forever. Now let us begin this sacred journey together, discovering what Saint Faustina saw when heaven opened its secrets to her humble heart. You might think that when someone dies, they simply close their eyes to this world forever. But what if I told you that Saint Faustina discovered the exact opposite is true? In her diary, she writes about a profound vision where she saw how the souls of the departed actually gain a new kind of sight, not with physical eyes, but with the pure vision of the heart, illuminated by divine light. These souls don't see the material world as we do, but they perceive something infinitely more beautiful, the spiritual essence of love itself, radiating from the hearts of their families still on earth. When you pray for your departed loved ones, when you offer a mass, when you simply whisper their name with love, Saint Faustina witnessed that these souls see these actions as golden rays of light piercing through the mysterious veil between earth and eternity. In Diary Entry 20, she describes seeing souls in purgatory who would turn toward earth whenever someone remembered them in prayer, their faces brightening like flowers turning toward the sun. Can you imagine the comfort this brings them? Your love doesn't die with their physical departure. It becomes visible to them in ways more beautiful than anything they experienced in life. But here's what moved Saint Faustina to tears. These souls see not just your actions, but the intentions behind them. They perceive the depth of your love, the sincerity of your grief, the purity of your desire to help them. When a mother lights a candle for her departed child, the soul sees not just the flame, but the burning love in her heart. When a spouse offers suffering for their deceased beloved, the soul witnesses not just the sacrifice, but the unbreakable bond that death could not sever. This is why Saint Faustina often wrote that love creates a bridge that death cannot destroy. The practical application for your life is profound. Every genuine act of love for your departed family members is seen, felt, and treasured by them. Start today. Mention their names in your prayers, offer small sacrifices for their souls, attend Mass with their intention in your heart. Remember this truth that will transform your relationship with loss. Love creates light that souls can see across eternity. Do you feel called to reach out to your loved ones in this new way? There's a kind of suffering that Saint Faustina witnessed in the spiritual realm that breaks the heart of anyone who truly understands it. The anguish of souls who see their families moving on as if death had completely severed every connection. In one of her most moving visions, recorded in Diary Entry 20, she encountered a soul weeping in purgatory, and when she asked why, the soul replied, "I weep because those who loved me have forgotten that I still exist. They live as if I never was, and their forgetting is a weight heavier than the purifying fire that cleanses me." Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina that souls in purgatory experience time differently than we do, but they feel the intensity of love or the absence of it with incredible depth. When families stop praying for them, stop mentioning their names, stop including them in their spiritual lives, these souls don't feel anger or resentment. They feel a profound spiritual loneliness. It's not that they need our love to exist, but their purification is eased when they feel the warmth of remembrance flowing toward them from earth. Think about this. Your departed mother isn't upset that you don't visit her grave daily, but her soul rejoices when you whisper, "I love you, Mom," during your morning prayers. The most heartbreaking part of Saint Faustina's revelation is that souls can see when their families make major decisions, face serious trials, or experience significant joys without acknowledging their spiritual presence or asking for their intercession. They want to help, to intercede, to be part of the family's spiritual life, but they can only do so effectively when there's an active connection of prayer and remembrance from earth. When you act as if death has made them irrelevant to your life, you're missing out on powerful intercessors who are already closer to God's throne than you are. Tonight, before you sleep, speak to your departed loved ones as if they're in the room with you, because spiritually, they might be. Tell them about your day, ask for their prayers, include them in your hopes and fears. Practice this sacred truth. The souls see our forgetting, but they shine when we remember. How would your life change if you truly believed your loved ones are still actively part of your family, just in a different realm? Picture this extraordinary scene that Saint Faustina witnessed during one of her mystical experiences. She saw threads of golden light stretching from earth to purgatory, and she asked her guardian angel what they were. He explained that these were the prayers of the living reaching their departed loved ones, and each prayer appeared as a luminous cord binding earth to heaven. But what amazed her most was seeing how different types of prayers created different intensities of light. A casual, "God rest their soul," appeared as a dim flicker, while a heartfelt rosary blazed like a golden rope, and a mass offered for the soul created what she described as a pillar of fire that reached the very throne of God. The souls themselves, Saint Faustina observed, could see these golden threads approaching them, and they would stretch out their spiritual hands to receive the grace contained within each prayer. In diary entry 1226, she records Jesus telling her, "The souls in purgatory are constantly benefited by the Church's prayers, the Mass, almsgiving, and other good works, especially those offered specifically for them. But here's what will astonish you. When a prayer is offered for all the souls in purgatory generally, it appears to them as a soft rain of light that benefits many. But when someone prays specifically for their own departed family member, that prayer becomes a focused beam of divine mercy that transforms the individual soul's experience." Saint Faustina learned that the most powerful prayers for the dead aren't necessarily the longest or most complicated ones. What matters is the love and sincerity behind them. A child saying, "Jesus, please take care of Grandpa," with pure love can create a brighter light than elaborate prayers recited without heart. She witnessed souls being instantly released from purgatory at the moment of consecration during a Mass offered for them, their faces radiating joy as they ascended toward eternal light. This is why she always emphasized that we shouldn't underestimate the power of simple, heartfelt prayers. If this message is touching your heart and helping you understand the incredible power of prayer for your departed loved ones, write in the comments, "I believe in the communion of saints," and subscribe to this channel so you can receive more teachings that will deepen your spiritual understanding. Practice this tonight. Choose one specific departed family member and offer 1 decade of the rosary just for them, imagining your prayer as golden light reaching their soul. Remember, every prayer is a golden thread that binds earth to heaven. Are you ready to strengthen these sacred connections? There's something profoundly moving that Saint Faustina discovered about how departed souls react when they witness their living family members turn back to God. In her diary, she describes a vision where she saw souls in purgatory suddenly illuminated with joy, and when she asked why, Jesus explained, "They rejoice because someone from their earthly family has returned to me through sincere confession and conversion. The joy of these souls is so great that it lessens their purifying sufferings and hastens their entrance into heaven." Can you imagine the happiness your departed grandmother feels when she sees you, who perhaps lived carelessly for years, finally kneeling in a confessional and genuinely repenting? Saint Faustina witnessed that souls can see the spiritual state of their family members with perfect clarity. They see when someone's heart is hardened by sin, when someone is struggling with faith, and especially when someone experiences that grace-filled moment of authentic conversion. She wrote that these souls pray constantly for their family's salvation, and when their prayers are answered, their own purification is accelerated because they've participated in God's work of redemption. The saint discovered something even more remarkable. When a family member converts or deepens their faith, it creates what she called a mystical exchange, where the prayers and merits of the converted person become particularly powerful for their departed relatives. A son who stops drinking and begins attending daily Mass doesn't just save his own soul. His renewed spiritual spiritual life becomes a source of grace for his deceased father. A daughter who forgives old family wounds and embraces religious life becomes a fountain of mercy for her departed mother. This is the beautiful reality of the communion of saints in action. But here's the challenge that Saint Faustina places before each of us. The souls can also see when we remain stubbornly attached to sin, when we waste the graces they're interceding for us to receive, when we could be saints but choose mediocrity instead. They don't condemn us, but they grieve spiritually, knowing that our spiritual progress would not only save our own souls, but would also be their pathway to greater glory. Begin today to live in a way that makes your departed loved ones rejoice. Pursue holiness not just for yourself, but for all the souls who are counting on your spiritual growth. Your conversion creates joy that echoes through eternity. What change will you make today that will bring happiness to your loved ones in the beyond? In one of the most breathtaking visions recorded in her diary, Saint Faustina was permitted to see what happens in the spiritual realm during the celebration of Mass when it's offered for the departed. She describes seeing the church filled not only with the living faithful, but with countless souls from purgatory who were somehow spiritually present, their forms becoming more radiant as the Mass progressed. At the moment of consecration, when the bread and wine became the true body and blood of Christ, she witnessed several souls being instantly liberated from purgatory, ascending toward heaven like flames drawn upward by an irresistible spiritual force. Jesus explained to Saint Faustina that the Mass is the most powerful prayer the Church can offer for the dead because it makes present the very sacrifice that opened heaven to humanity. When a Mass is celebrated for a specific soul, that soul receives graces that are immeasurable, not just because of the prayers of the priest and congregation, but because they are touched directly by the redemptive power of Christ's passion, death, and resurrection. She wrote in Diary Entry 1783, "I saw how much the souls in purgatory suffer, but I also saw that they are greatly helped by our prayers, especially by the Holy Mass." What moved Saint Faustina most deeply was seeing how the souls reacted when their family members attended these Masses with genuine devotion versus when people attended merely out of obligation. When someone assisted at Mass with their heart truly united to the sacrifice, thinking specifically of their departed loved one, she saw the grace flowing to that soul like a mighty river. But when someone attended while distracted, thinking about worldly concerns, the grace was still there, but reduced to what she described as a gentle stream. The difference was in the spiritual participation and intention of the living family member. The practical implication is clear. If you want to truly help your departed loved ones, there is no substitute for having Masses offered for them and participating in those Masses with your whole heart. Don't just drop money in the Mass intention box and walk away. Attend the Mass, unite your prayers to the sacrifice, offer your presence as a gift to your loved one's soul. Saint Faustina saw that souls are often released at the precise moment their family members receive communion with love and faith. The Mass transforms earth's love into heaven's key. When will you next offer this supreme gift to someone you miss? One of the most healing revelations that Saint Faustina received concerns how departed souls perceived the unresolved conflicts and unforgiven hurts that remained in families when death separated them. In a particularly poignant vision, she encountered a soul who had died while estranged from her daughter due to a bitter family argument. The soul wasn't tormented by anger or resentment. Instead, she radiated a deep sorrow mixed with hope, explaining to Saint Faustina, "I see now how petty our quarrel was compared to the love that death cannot destroy. I pray constantly that my daughter will forgive me, not because I am condemned, but because her forgiveness would heal both our souls and create a bridge of peace between us." Saint Faustina learned that souls in the afterlife see human conflicts with perfect spiritual clarity. They understand the hurts on both sides, the misunderstandings, the pride that prevented reconciliation, and most importantly, they see how much love remained beneath the surface anger. These souls don't need our forgiveness for their own salvation, but they long for it because forgiveness creates what she called a mystical healing that reaches across the veil of death and transforms pain into peace for both the living and the dead. The saint witnessed something extraordinary when living family members consciously forgave their departed relatives. At the moment of sincere forgiveness, she saw light literally flowing from the living person to the soul, and the soul's appearance became more radiant and peaceful. When someone forgives a deceased parent who was harsh, a spouse who was unfaithful, or a sibling who was selfish, that act of mercy becomes a prayer that reaches across eternity. Jesus told Saint Faustina, "Forgiveness offered to the dead becomes a crown of glory for the living and a source of refreshment for the souls." But here's the part that might challenge you. Saint Faustina also saw how departed souls grieve when their living family members remain bound by resentment and unforgiveness. A mother who died in an accident while arguing with her teenage son suffers not from divine punishment, but from seeing her child destroy his own peace by clinging to anger and guilt. These souls want to communicate that love transcends every human failure, and that holding on to bitterness hurts the living far more than the dead. Tonight, speak words of forgiveness to any departed family member who hurt you, and feel the spiritual chains breaking not just around your heart, but in the communion of souls. Forgiveness creates bridges that death cannot destroy. Who do you need to forgive to heal both your soul and theirs? Perhaps no vision moved Saint Faustina more deeply than her encounters with souls of children who had died young, babies who lived only days, children who succumbed to illness, young people whose lives were cut short by tragedy. What she discovered about these innocent souls completely transformed her understanding of death and will bring profound comfort to any parent or family member who has experienced such loss. In her diary, she describes seeing these young souls not as they were at death, but in their spiritual maturity, radiant with knowledge and love that surpassed earthly understanding. These child souls, Saint Faustina learned, have a special role in the spiritual realm. They serve as powerful intercessors for their families, precisely because their innocence gives them immediate access to God's presence. She witnessed infant souls who had died at birth, praying with sophisticated spiritual understanding for their parents' salvation, and teenage souls who had died in accidents, interceding with remarkable wisdom for their siblings' spiritual growth. Jesus explained to her, "These little ones receive in an instant the knowledge and love that others acquire through years of spiritual development. Their early death is not a punishment, but a calling to become guardian angels for their families." What astonished Saint Faustina most was seeing how these young souls perceive their family's grief. They don't want their loved ones to stop mourning. They understand that grief is love with nowhere to go. But they desperately want their families to know that death didn't rob them of life. It simply transferred them to a different kind of existence where they can love more purely and pray more effectively. She saw child souls becoming distressed, not by their families' tears, but by their families' despair, especially when parents began to doubt God's love, or when siblings started to fear death as ultimate separation. The most consoling part of Saint Faustina's revelation is that these child souls maintain their tender love for their families while gaining supernatural wisdom about eternal matters. A baby who died at 6 months understands spiritual truths that earthly theologians spend lifetimes trying to comprehend, but still delights in their mother's prayers and their father's acts of love offered in their memory. They are simultaneously innocent children and wise intercessors. If you've lost a child or young family member, know that they are not lost, diminished, or forgotten. They have become your family's most powerful prayer warrior, interceding from the closest possible position to God's heart. Young souls become heaven's strongest advocates for their families. How does knowing this change your relationship with grief and hope? Saint Faustina was granted an extraordinary privilege that few mystics have received. She was allowed to witness what happens to a soul at the precise moment of death, and more importantly, how departed family members participate in that sacred transition. In several visions recorded in her diary, she describes seeing souls of recently deceased people being welcomed by their departed relatives who had died before them. But this wasn't a simple family reunion. It was a profound spiritual event where the love between family members became visible as rays of light that helped guide the newly departed soul toward its eternal destination. She witnessed that souls who had lived in grace were met by their departed loved ones who appeared as beings of light, radiating the love they had shared on earth, but now purified and intensified. A mother who had prayed faithfully for her deceased husband throughout her widowhood was greeted by that husband's soul, which had been transformed by her prayers into a radiant intercessor. The saint saw how the prayers, sacrifices, and love offered by family members during someone's lifetime and after their death literally become part of the spiritual preparation for that soul's own transition to eternity. But Saint Faustina also witnessed the heartbreaking reality of souls who died without preparation, who had lived disconnected from family bonds and spiritual relationships. These souls weren't abandoned, but their transition was more difficult because they had fewer spiritual connections to help them. She saw how the prayers of even distant relatives or forgotten friends could provide assistance to these souls, proving that no act of love is ever wasted and that family bonds blessed by God extend far beyond what we can imagine in earthly life. The The practical wisdom from Saint Faustina's visions is profound. The love you show to family members now, the prayers you offer for departed relatives, the forgiveness you extend across family wounds, all of this is creating a spiritual network that will be activated at the moment of your own death. You're not just helping your departed loved ones, you're preparing your own welcome into eternity. Every act of familial love becomes part of the eternal communion that transcends death. Invest now in these spiritual relationships that will matter more than anything else when your earthly journey ends. Love prepares the welcome that awaits us beyond death. What investment will you make today in these eternal family bonds? In one of her most mystifying visions, Saint Faustina was shown what she called the hidden prayer life of departed souls, the constant intercession that our deceased family members offer for us before God's throne, intercession that is often more powerful and persistent than any prayers we received when they were alive. She witnessed departed parents praying with supernatural understanding for their living children's spiritual needs, deceased spouses interceding for their surviving beloved's salvation, and departed siblings offering sacrifices in the spiritual realm for their living relatives' conversion and protection. What amazed Saint Faustina was discovering that death doesn't diminish a soul's love for family. It purifies and intensifies that love beyond earthly limitations. A father who might have been too busy or emotionally unavailable during life becomes, after death and purification, an incredibly focused intercessor for his children's spiritual welfare. A mother who worried constantly about her family during life transforms that anxiety into perfect trust and powerful prayer for their eternal salvation. These